It's time for we to build a better TNT. It's time for we to vote for the UNC. So let me tell them, August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your family. August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your country.
Come let we vote.
Stand your ground now for you and your family.
So let we vote.
This is the time to secure TNT.
Come out and vote.
Make sure the children safe in the community.
So we have to vote.
This is the time to secure TNT.
Hey!
You see the crime and violence, we can't take it no more.
No more, no more.
And the home invasion of the people insecure.
Insecurity, you know.
To secure TNT, when sees the way to go.
Way to go.
So on election day,
What to do?
Just vote for you. For your family security.
Vote for you.
For your community security.
Vote for you.
Just to save your economy.
Vote for you.
Vote to secure TNT. August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your family. August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your country.
Come let we vote.
Stand your ground now for you and your family.
So let we vote.
this is the time to secure TNT.
Come out and vote.
Make sure the children safe in the community.
So we have to vote.
This is the time to secure TNT.
Stand your ground and secure your family. Stand your ground and secure the community. Stand your ground and secure this country. Stand your ground now. Stand your ground now. Hey!
You see the crime and violence, we can't take it no more.
No more, no more.
And the home invasion of the people insecure.
Insecurity to the fullest.
To secure TNT, when sees the way to go.
Only way to go.
So on election day,
What to do?
Just vote for you. For your family security.
Vote for you.
For your community security.
Vote for you.
Just to save your economy.
Vote for you.
Vote to secure TNT. August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your family. August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your country.
Come let we vote.
Stand your ground now for you and your family.
So let we vote.
this is the time to secure TNT.
Come out and vote.
Make sure the children safe in the community.
So we have to vote.
This is the time to secure TNT.
Stand your ground and secure your family. Stand your ground and secure the community. Stand your ground and secure this country. Stand your ground now. Stand your ground now. For your family security.
Vote for you.
For your community security.
Vote for you.
Just to save your economy.
Vote for you.
Vote to secure TNT.
Vote for you.
On August 14th, vote for you. Vote for the UNC.
Vote for UNC. Vote for UNC. Come let we vote. So let we vote. Come out and vote. So we have to vote. This is the time to secure TNT.
This is the voice of the United National Congress on the road to secure you and your family. Let's build a safe and secure TNT together. Come out and meet your local government candidate walking in your community. Let us know how we can work to make your community safe and secure. Your UNC candidate will work to ensure your children are safe and secure their schools. Improve street lighting. Bring back the community comfort patrols to your neighborhood. Come out and meet your UNC local candidate now. Join us on the road to a safe and secure future on August 14th. Vote for you and your family. Vote for the UNC.
Come out and vote. So we have to vote. This is the time to secure TNT.
Stand your ground and secure your family. Stand your ground and secure the community. Stand your ground and secure this country. Stand your ground now. Stand your ground now.
Let's build a safe and secure TNT together. See the winning candidates working to build a safe and secure TNT through the power of local government. Come out and meet your local government candidate walking in your community. Let us know how we can work to make your community safe and secure. On August 14th, vote for you and your family. Vote for the UNC.
Vote for UNC. Vote for UNC. Come let we vote.
for you. For your community security. Vote for you.
Everyone supports restarting community comfort patrols in your community and the surrounding areas. Your UNC candidate will work to ensure your children are safe and secure their schools, improve street lighting, bring back the community comfort patrols to your neighborhood. Vote for the UNC.
You see the crime and violence, we can't take it no more.
No more, no more.
And the home invasion of the people insecure.
Security, you know.
To security and the UNC is the way to go.
Way to go.
So on election day,
What to do?
Just vote for you.
Vote for you. Vote for you. Vote for you. Vote to security and to
August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your family. August 14, vote for UNC. That's the way to secure your country.
Come let we vote.
Stand your ground now for you and your family.
So let we vote.
this is the time to secure TNT.
Come out and vote.
Make sure the children safe in the community.
So we have to vote.
This is the time to secure the ante. Stand your ground and secure your family. Stand your ground and secure the community. Stand your ground and secure this country. Stand your ground now. Stand your ground now.
No more, no more.
Come out and meet your local government candidate walking in your community.
Where to go? What to do? Just vote for you. Vote for you.
Thank you, Mr. President, Vice President. I just want to put on record the definition of perjury. That is lying under oath. Now, I wasn't sure whether I was in the Senate today or if I was at Center of Excellence after Carnival at a comedy show after hearing the Honorable Attorney General's presentation, because it's very interesting. I think I have to say to move over McCandle Dagger, move over Maurice Marshall, move over Rudy Indar Singh, Bastio Pandey, Uriah Buzz Butler, Adrian Cola Rienzi, Errol McLeod. We have a new fighter for the people of the Netherlands, for the poor and the downtrodden. I say all of them can rest because we now have Attorney General Amor, the man on the ground. Yeah. But then I realized like the Red House had moved to St. Anne's because the Honorable Attorney General said on Hansard that he wrote a note to himself, and I realized that this had to be a twilight zone. But confession, Mr. Vice President, is good for the soul. Because at first, at the beginning of his contribution, the Honorable Attorney General looked to his left at the normal acting Prime Minister and member for Diego Martin Northeast and the Minister of Finance, and he kind of told him that he brought the orders and he made the orders and he did this. When we all know how cabinet works, and a Minister of Finance writes nothing and makes no legal order until getting advice from the Honorable Attorney General. Later on in his contribution, he wrote a note to himself to remind himself that it was him who told the Honorable Minister of Finance to do what he did. Now, I'm not sure with this Honorable Attorney General whether the file got lost or the order got lost, because he made a categorical statement here that the government broke no law. Well, I asked the government, and by extension the Honorable Attorney General and the freedom fighter, well, what we doing here, what we validating? If no law was broken, why only have me here at 9:12? What are we, let me read it. We are here to, let me put on my glasses and make sure I read the thing correctly here. This bill seeks to amend the Public Procurement Disposal of Public Property Act No. 1 of 2015, the Act, and to validate certain actions taken in respect of statutory instruments made under the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act. The last time I checked, the meaning of validate, it means you did something wrong, you did something illegal, and you have to validate your actions. You come here to redefine bring a thesaurus from the PNM in Balize House to tell us that you broke no law, then what are we doing here?
That's a good point.
Independent. And as they say, well, they say they broke no law.
Let's go home.
O.J. Simpson say he wasn't guilty either. Independent Senator Richards, my honorable colleague, I would like you at some point in time, whether to the media, on Facebook, or here in the Senate, to explain what you meant when you stated in this honorable Senate that you had been lobbied. By whom? I certainly did not, as a UNC senator, lobby any independent senator or Senator Paul Richards. So he will have to explain what he meant when he said here that he had been lobbied with regards to this bill. Lobbied by whom? For what? To do what? Where? When? And how? Because this country has to return to the basic principles of propriety, decorum, and democracy. Senator Paul Richards, independent senator, also said that they keep personalizing principles. Vice President, there are certain principles of conflict of interest and apparent bias that do not require personalization. It does not mean that you're attacking someone. If you have a conflict of interest, you have a conflict of interest. If there's an apparent bias, there's an apparent bias. If someone is appointed by the very government who's in charge of spending the money, breaking the law, bringing validation, and they are appointed and friendly and get remuneration from that government, there exists a conflict of interest. There's apparent bias. It does not require actual bias. So for independent Senator Paul Richards to say, leave the lady alone, let us see if she can do her work, he does not understand the principle. It is irrelevant how professional the individual is or if they are able to differentiate and to actually look at something impartially. The principle of apparent bias is clear. Once the conflict exists, you must recuse. You cannot take an independent position. This is why in our country now, we have judges who are in love with their husband, and the husband is a PNM, and the husband is in Inez Gate, and the husband is a legal advisor to the government and a senior counsel, and they don't recuse. They have to say, no, I'm still going to sit down there and judge in a political case. We are losing our moorings. We have another judge who did not know that her brother was on the board, who brought the case before her, go through 4 years, and then had to come out and crash the whole case. So we need to return to some sort of propriety, understanding, democracy, rule of law, and just general character. We have seen it. We have seen it with this PNM. I was honored to be a minister of sport in a cabinet. I have been swimming and coaching for decades. As a minister of sport, I knew that for decades we had tried to build an Olympic pool. I sat quietly and listened to the nonsense spewed by the PNM. So, Mr. Vice President, I ask protection, especially from the chutney singer on that side.
Please be reminded of the standing orders which the member should have silence to make his contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I really don't have time. You see, time is short. And when I decided to swear on the Bible to be a minister of sport, I understood that I would not be able to move my family's business or the business of Piranha Aquatics forward to use taxpayers' money to build the aquatic center that the PNM and the now Prime Minister and former Minister John Rahal had said over his dead body it would build. But I said that once you come into office, you cannot go in the cabinet and utilize resources of the people for your family's advancement. So that land remains empty even up to today, while an aquatic center was built by Kamla Prasad Bisesa and this minister's sport in Cuba for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But this PNM government, of which the ministers and those who are shouting and standing up have 9 and 10 recusals themselves and will have to answer when the time is correct. This PNM government allows a former attorney general to step outside and have a cup of tea, and then they approve rental of his own building. So they have lost their moral ground to speak anything about procurement or corruption in any form or fashion. Well, as we said, I do have it, because you see this government here, they can say all of them in here will talk about live sport, but not one of them will go outside of anywhere and say Anil Roberts, the former minister, took money or corruption in live sport, because they cannot. And I dare any one of them to do it. And I would love to have to wait. I've been waiting for 8 years, 9 years, and I'll keep waiting. You could spend 50 million, you could spend 100 million, but the reason you will never get anything on a minister of sport named Anil O.E. Roberts, Mr. Vice President, is because you follow process. You do not overstep your bounds. You follow the rule of law, and you allow the public servants to do their job. So if there's anything in any problem with live sport had a board, sport company board, they had a CEO, they have a director. And once you follow the law...
Senator Roberts, I ask that you bring your contribution and tie it in.
Well, sure, sir.
Please, yeah.
I'm tying it in, sir, because we are here because the government, the executive, broke the law. They overstepped their bounds. They did not follow the procedure. They did not follow the law. They did not follow the procurement. So I am showing you that the law not only protects the people's money, the law protects the ministers and the governor, the executive, who follow the rules and follow the law, and no amount of witch hunt, no amount of SRP kit, no amount of 100 million. And they'll right there and stand up right there in front of them. Some of them will end up where they would like to send somebody else quite before me, because when you follow the law, you could stand strong, and no evil made, no plan could harass, no tape recording, no audio tape, no commissioner of police who could line in with a senior counsel could do anything to bring you down. This here today, we are seeing that the government broke the law. They come here to call the Senate, and they want to continue to break the law going forward, because the PNM has never been one to believe in procurement. And I'll show you that. My honorable young colleague from Tobago, a little disappointed in him today.
No, he's a good fellow.
He's a good fellow, yes, but I would advise him as a young politician to read a little bit more before you get involved in debate, because you believe that the PNM began in 2010. So you probably just got into politics recently. But let me just say that to the Honorable Senator Hislop, he said that the UNC passed the legislation in 2015, and we left it to the PNM to do whatever. My brother, Senator, there was an election in 2015, just after the passing of the procurement legislation with special majority, with very serious clauses. And in that election, the EBC gave the PNM an extra hour and did not tell the UNC. The PNM just came to the, well, if you'd like to say that you won it like that, yes, Ben Johnson won the 100 meters in 1988 also. Does he have the gold medal? But also, let me say to the honorable senator that you came into office in 2015. So you're criticizing the UNC for not proclaiming a legislation in a few months that you have not done in 8 years. And now when you reset, as soon as you proclaim it, you break it. So, Senator, I think you should slow your roll and take your time. You know, also Senator Hislop said and made the most incredible statement. He said, and it's echoed by some of the PNM, those small amounts, 1 million and less, you don't need procurement for that. You don't need checks and balances. Those things are small. Let me just tell you, he said, hey, you all didn't listen to your colleague, so please don't disturb me if you didn't go and read his Hansard. He said, why do you need all of those checks and the smaller contracts? You need them to move fast. And don't worry about that. You need it for the billion-dollar projects. That's what the Honorable Senator said. Let me tell the Honorable Senator Hislop. Small thief, big thief, same thief.
Yeah.
Stand in order, please. I didn't give way. No.
46. Senators have a seat. Both have a seat. Senator Roberts, Senator Hislop, Senator Roberts have a seat.
I didn't give way.
Senator, kindly allow. No. Kindly allow the senator to raise his standing order.
So, Mr. President, 46-6, not because I'm a young senator. Senator Roberts is going to want to bully me when I'm raising a standing order. 46-6, Mr. Vice President.
That's not what you said.
I never said that.
Hold on. Senator Roberts, proceed with your contribution.
You know, if you come to debate and you don't know what you said, I can't help the junior senator, because he said, and he quoted, that you need this procurement law for the big contracts, the big projects. You don't need it for the small, in trying to defend clause 4 and 5. And I am saying to the honorable senator, small thief, big thief, same thief. You understand? And as your former prime minister said, show me a liar and I'll show you a thief, right? So show me a small thief and I will show you a big thief.
Mr. President, on a point of order, 46-4, please. This is on parliamentary language, as he is unparliamentary.
Members, Senator, whilst you continue your contribution, please be mindful of your language. And I would ask you once again, I take the opportunity to tie in what you're saying to the relevance of the matter, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Those were not my words. Those were the words of the former Prime Minister and member for San Fernando East, a seat that the Minister of Tourism once held, and he was kicked out of it for somebody else. So those are not my words. Those are the PNM's words. Senator Dayal Singh talked about and called out a lot of names. And I just have to correct the record, because when you're calling names, you must call names and have facts and figures so you don't end up in court. I ended up in court once over 20 years after being on radio 3 hours a day and so on. It was only one fella, the now member for San Fernando East, who replaced the Minister of Tourism. He took me to court over a $9 million basketball league. Of course, he lost, and he had to pay costs and so on. So that's the only time I ever reached as far as the court. But I beat him, his attorneys, A.A. Commoner, and Stuart Young, right? So let me just say the reason for that is that when you open your mouth, you must research and you must talk facts so that you don't have to come in here and hide and play a talk. You must talk outside. So when you talk the truth, when you find facts and figures, it can't end up in court, because the PNM chooses to make up stories. So let me just say to Senator, the Honorable Dayal Singh, in his contribution, I'm sure he didn't intend to do so, but he just rattled off some names. And then he said these previous people have done bad things or have brought our country into disrepute and so on. And he linked their names to one PNM called John O'Halloran. So I just have to correct the record, because one of those names he also called was the former Prime Minister and the second best Prime Minister this country ever saw, the Honorable Bastio Pandey, who has no case. Whatever cases were brought against him by persecution, he saw them through and he was exonerated. He was brought before the court and put into jail because he did not declare an account that his wife had. But yet we have a sitting member of parliament here who has declared on his integrity forms, has not declared a benefit of $468,000 on an apartment that he negotiated and purchased, while putting a false value on the integrity form and signing it. But we don't see him going to any jail.
Mr. Vice President, on a point of order, please. 46-6.
Member, whilst you make your contribution, not only must you keep it as tight as possible when it comes to motives and implying improper motives about members or past members, one kindly continue with your comment.
Yes, I'm just clarifying and clearing the record because the Honorable Senator Dialsing, certainly I did not think that he intended to cast aspersions by linking people's names. I won't even repeat their names. To O'Halloran, let me just put on the record who PNM John O'Halloran is. And I quote from Linquist report, printed in 1987, Government of Trinidad and Tobago versus Minister Johnny O'Halloran, Mr. 10%, this PNM man, done by, on political corruption and bribery. Mr. 10% of Trinidad. It doesn't sound like much to be Mr. 10% of Trinidad. A man named John H. O'Halloran made himself an extraordinarily wealthy man. Johnny O, as he was called on the island, hadn't come as a stranger to Trinidad. He grew up there. O'Halloran's clout in Trinidad lay in the sway he seemed to hold over a man named Eric Williams.
Kindly tie this into the debate.
So,
you're explaining a name that was raised once. Tell me the relevance of it.
The relevance of this Honorable Vice President is that the PNM was born of corruption, developed on corruption, and has broken the law, one of the procurement legislation, and has brought us here to validate the corruption. And I am saying that this PNM, I'm going to show you also that they never wanted procurement legislation. Their track record and timeline shows that they tried to thwart it at every level. From since the Central Tenders Board Act that they thought that they were forced to bring into power, to the creation of special purpose companies by the PNM under Patrick Manning in order to circumvent the Central Tenders Board and to put boards to procure, sell, dispose of assets and spend money. So we are not here by guess. We are here because the PNM is corrupt. They are made of corruption, and they continue their corruption by bringing us here to validate their orders that were illegal as they breach a legislation and a procurement law that they gutted previously. And now even that weakened, watered-down version was too strong for the PNM and the corrupt DNA. So I'm starting to read because Senator Dialsing called some names. And one of them was a UNC Prime Minister, and he linked it in the same breath with Johnny O'Halloran. Wow. So that's what I'm putting on the Hansard. So this PNM man, they continued. The movement, the People's National Movement, a political party that came to power in 1956. Williams appointed the man.
Point of order.
It's hard to listen to, isn't it?
46-1. This is going...
Senator Roberts, as intellectuals in the House, we understand the point you're tying in. Can you move on from that point, please? Because it's getting irrelevant.
No problem, Mr. President. No problem, Mr. Vice President. I know it's painful for them to know who they are, but we will let the population know.
Yes.
Early on today, I was looking for my daughter's Aunt Jemima's maple syrup to pour on all the waffle that the Minister of Finance came here to talk for 45 minutes. I have never seen normally. This minister is a brilliant individual. Never mind, he went to St. Mary's College. For the years, I've always enjoyed the battle and the debate with him. I know that you have to listen very carefully because he understands the law, he understands motions, he understands legislation, and he is very intelligent. But just like Muhammad Ali, even the greatest have to retire and get a little old and slow because he performed today like Ali versus Burbick in 1981 without the moon. He didn't sting like a bee and fly like a butterfly. His debate today as Minister of Finance.
Order 46-4.
Senator Roberts, you have 20 minutes remaining in your presentation. 18 minutes to be exact. I ask that you keep it relevant. You reduce your offensive language.
What offensive language?
Silence, please. Silence, please. Silence, please. Silence in the chamber, please. Silence in the chamber. Can you kindly bring your points across a little more palatable? Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice President, with all due respect, please tell me what word I used that was unpalatable.
Senator Roberts, your tone and the manner in which you're bringing it across is very offensive.
Really?
Yes. Can you proceed? Yeah.
That's very interesting, but the people will know. Anyway, that is a very good. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I shall continue. The Minister of Finance came and he said, before I reach the Minister of Finance, I listened to the Honorable Senator Dylan Remy, who said, you know, left side, right side, PNM, UNC, she gets confused with the debates and so on, and she doesn't know who's telling the truth. I would just like to say to the Honorable Independent Senator, when you look at the facts of the procurement legislation, and you look at the history of it, you would see that there is one side, that has done everything to thwart the procurement legislation, and then there's another side that in 5 years not only came into power and got legislation passed with a special majority, strong legislation in 5 years. Let me remind the Honorable Senator that the PNM was talking about procurement legislation through the Prime Minister, Patrick Manning, member for San Fernando East, since 2004. They came from 2004 to 2010 and they'd reached nowhere. It was a white paper in 2004, then a green paper. And then to delay it, they said that Calder Hart and Uttara Rao and Ken Julian had to comment on it. They came out of power in 2010, having left procurement legislation languishing. Kamla Prasad Bisesa became Prime Minister and moved it forward, and it was passed on January 2015. That is performance. The PNM then came in, Honorable Independent Senator, in 2015, and from 2015 to 2020, did absolutely nothing with the legislation sitting there collecting dust on a cobweb. Then they went into an election in 2020 under COVID, and we will discuss that at another time. And after that, they came to this parliament, they came to the parliament and the Senate to gut the legislation that existed, to make it weaker, to take things out, to take out medical supplies and legal fees and disposal of assets and government-to-government relations. And this was a government that collapsed a sea bridge, brought in through procurement, that PNM style, a company called Bridgemans that the then Prime Minister and member for Dago Martin West described as a crooked company, crooked money, but then simultaneously he approved it by prime ministerial approval, went back to the cabinet and got covering approval, and the Kobo Star is still operating now, 7 years later, $225 million later, of crooked money, as described not by the UNC, as described by the member for Dago Martin West. And that was done PNM procurement style. While they were doing that, and it collapsed, they then went, as they let the legislation languish on a shelf, they went to Australia, and we saw the new thing about ministers procuring vessels just before Australia. Wow. A cabinet committee was rushed together in the cabinet to get yes.
Senator Roberts, as interesting as your historical standpoint is, I ask that you bring it to relevance to the 6 clauses at hand without going as wide as you are, because you have broken relevance many times in this contribution.
So as far as I can see, we are here dealing with procurement, amendments to the procurement legislation. And I am showing you that this PNM, who broke the law and have us here to validate, they have a history of doing so and breaking down the principles of corporate governance and best practice. Because where even in the Central Tenders Board Act of 1960, or the Special Purpose Company or the Ministry of Finance rules, there was never ever in the history of Trinidad and Tobago any element where a committee of ministers will be allowed to procure goods and services. This PNM put together a ministerial committee to procure the Galleon's Passage. It was supposed to be a lease of a fast ferry, but they purchased a slow boat to nowhere for $120 million. This is why procurement legislation is very important and why we must not support the validation of the breaking of the law of the PNM, because you give them an inch, they take a billion. So let me just read.
The member's been talking about validation for 10 minutes now. Get tedious.
Let me also go quickly as I'm running out of time. And let me go to the Hansard. There's a lot of research to show the independent senators that this PNM never wanted procurement. So let me go back to the debate of the appropriation bill, September 2009, when the PNM was in government. The Honorable Patrick Manning, Minister for San Fernando East, was a Prime Minister. Member for Point 14 is now here interrupting me. But let's go back to that debate. And let's see what the leader of the opposition at that time, the Honorable Bastio Pandey, had to say. He said, and I quote, under the heading procurement reform, the Prime Minister promised, and I quote, Prime Minister meaning the PNM Prime Minister, to further ensure transparency and accountability and good governance, this government is undertaking a personal reform of its procurement process. This is 2009, 14 years ago. Wow. Okay. A personal reform of its procurement process. The imperative for reform centers on the need for good governance, public confidence in the integrity of the procurement process, conformity with informal international best practice, and the regional and international developments, prevailing deficiencies in the legal, regulatory framework, human resource limitations, and lack of regularity oversight further add to the urgency for the new objective and comprehensive approach to the government's acquisition of goods and services. Urgency, says Basdio Pandey, urgency was the Prime Minister's description. Then with great fanfare, he revealed a green paper on the reform of the government's procurement regime dated 2004, which was out for public...
Point of order. 46.1. The member is regaling us with a history on procurement when we are here to deal with 6 clauses. That's what it is. 6, yes.
Senator,
not to be regaled about the history of procurement in Trinidad.
As stated just before, when it applies to relevance, the history is a bit much. However, can you just tie it in a little quickly?
Tying it in, and it must be painful for the member who sat there. Because this shows that these 2 orders that came in May, because the government didn't know that CARICOM was turning 50, and they had to rush and then do orders and get advice from the Attorney General to break the law, that we are now called here to validate the breaking of the law. I am showing that the PNM's track record is to not have procurement legislation. They want to return to us not having procurement legislation, just like some editorials. That's why they're attacking the Guardian, because the Guardian remembers this. They remember the track record of the PNM when it comes to procurement. So it may be painful for them to hear, but this is fact. This is Hansard. So I will continue. Thank you. Urgency was the Prime Minister's description. Then with great fanfare, he revealed a green paper on the reform of government's procurement regime, dated 2004, which was out for public comment and which listed a series of recommendations. With a straight face, he told the country, implementation of the new procurement regime is implementation. I sat quietly while the Minister of Finance waffled. I don't know why he's interrupting.
That's because we are all hoping that you bring it to a point.
Yes. This is a funny joke, Vice President.
I don't think it's a funny... Senator. Senator, you have 8 minutes remaining. You need to take out the fluff and bring it into relevance. No. I am on my legs. I am on my legs. It is silence when I'm on my legs. I'm asking you in parliamentary terms to keep your point relevant and to desist from the straying away with the historical lesson. You have made your point. Do you have another point to bring?
You would apologize for describing it as what?
Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts, I am on my legs once again. I ask that you keep your contributions relevant and you tie it in to the bill and the amendments at hand.
Thank you, sir. The bill comes here to validate the illegal actions of this government, who broke the law with the procurement legislation that was eventually passed here. Right? The
Point of
PNM
order. 53(1)B. We heard this already.
The member has brought up tedious repetition. You have reiterated that point many a time.
Because you all keep standing up, sir.
But we have heard it. We have heard it. If I sit back down, you're going to say it again. I ask that you move on, please.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance said in this Honorable Senate that the procurement legislation passed in 2015 by the Kamla Prasad Bisesa government sought to put such stringent laws as developed countries, and that Trinidad and Tobago is not ready for such brilliance, such amazing. We are not able to reach those standards. The United National Congress says that we totally reject that statement by the PNM and the Minister of Finance. We in Trinidad and Tobago can ascribe to the highest levels of procurement, propriety, and merit throughout. And to make that argument that we are somehow, and I heard the Honorable Attorney General talk about us and describe us as some jungle and swinging. I didn't understand where he was going with that. But I can say that for a government and a Minister of Finance to come here and tell the population that we are not good enough to have stringent first world procurement so that we could stop thieving, I have a problem with the PNM government on that point. They say that they made a mistake. They made an error. It was oversight. It was poor drafting, but they didn't make the law, but we're going to validate. But yet they come here with arrogance and hubris. When one makes a mistake, or when there's oversight, or they made an error, one should come and say, mea culpa, we are sorry. We humbly ask you to help us get out of the morass that we have found ourselves in. Could you please assist us? But not this PNM. They break the law. They got the procurement. They procure and spend people money illegally. We don't know how much, we don't know where it went, to whom and by whom and what we got for it. They came in the parliament, and when they were asked a question downstairs about the conference that told us that crime is a public health thing, like you need a vaccine to stop gun, they came and told us it was 1.3 million. We later found out 2 weeks later it was 3.4 million. They're telling us about 9 million, but 20 million was approved. Is it 20 million? Is it 50 million? Is it 100 million? We need to know where the taxpayers' money went, where the money gone.
Who spent it?
They attacked the Guardian editorial, and the Honorable Minister of Finance said, and he took umbrage to the words that it is sinister. Well, I put it to you here in the Senate that it is sinister beyond belief that the PNM claims the 50th anniversary of CARICOM snuck up on them. It is sinister beyond belief that the PNM spent taxpayers' money contrary to the law. It is sinister beyond belief that the Minister of Finance, on the advice of the Honorable Attorney General, would surreptitiously, secretly produce 2 illegal orders, 164 and 206. It is sinister beyond belief that the PNM will be terrified and vehemently opposed and allergic to strong erstwhile procurement legislation. Up to 1 million, they say, is small thing. I say small thief or big thief, same thief. In many other countries, the independent commissioners of police, they have independent commissioner of police, they have independent public service, they have well-staffed and fully funded DPP's office. So when they compare some of the stringent legislation or some of the authority to procure without limit at certain levels, those countries have systems and independent institutions that are functioning. In this country, under the PNM, All independent institutions have been infected with Balisé poison, whether it is the Commissioner of Police, the Integrity Commission, across the board. So we need legislation that is strong, that an independent procurement regulator could monitor the activities of the PNM. The Minister of Finance said he gave us an example of the World Trade Organization. But the World Trade Organization never envisaged a government like the PNM. They cannot even fathom this sort of impropriety. They cannot fathom that an attorney general would go into a foreign jurisdiction and sign a document that is full of falsehoods. They could not understand that a prime minister will go to Australia with his #1 sidekick and visit 2 different companies, pretend that it's procurement, tell them to tender to the very minister. The minister will look over it and say that one company bid less than the other. Call the company whose bid was higher, alert them of the secret information of the other company, and then boast that he saved the country money and hand out 1 vessel here and 1 vessel there like it's dinner mint. Only in Trinidad and Tobago do we have the impropriety of the PNM. And now you come here to tell us vote to legitimize their legal act. We in the UNC say no. We wait for August 14th and we wait for an election to get rid of them. They have a history of corruption as long as the party from 1956 through now. And it's getting worse under Diego Martin West. So the population has heard today as they try to interrupt. We have seen that an Attorney General has turned the Senate into St. Anne's. And we say on August 14th, we will get rid of each and every one of the PNM across Trinidad. Thank you very much.
Yes.